Hi, I'm Jamie Caroline and I'm a single-seater racing driver from England. It was always a family thing. My mum, up until my first year in F4, only ever missed one race in 10 years. Obviously, early stages of your career, you're building a platform and a name for yourself, so no one really knows who you are, what you've done. This is where the magic happens. You've grafted for since you were 5 years old, driving a car around the fields. To then have that stop purely down to money, no matter how good you was or how good you are, isn't a great feeling. No pressure.
So Jamie, how did you first get into motorsport?
From a young age, I always had quads, motorbikes, dune buggies, because my granddad used to have a farm not far from where we live now. I used to go up there on the weekends with all my friends, driving around the fields, learning. But what I didn't know at the time, all Dad was teaching me was car control in the build-up to me getting in a race car or go-kart. He taught me to drive a car when I was 5, sat on his lap, giving me commentary behind like I was in a race, which was always cool. And then Dad and his friends were at a kart track, and there was a go-kart in the kart shop that was there, and they didn't have the money to afford it. So what they did is they haggled the man in the shop for the price. They got him down a bit, and then they all chipped in to buy it. We chucked it in the pickup and took it home, did a few bits to it, and a bit of TLC it needed. So sorted that out, and yeah, it went from there really. That was at 7. There was a little go-kart track in Croydon, which I learnt to drive, called Tracks. And funny thing was I had a little accident, and they had tractor tyres on each corner for the apexes, and I hit one of them, and then I didn't tell my dad. I just told my mum, I don't want to race go-karts anymore. So it was a little bit frightening, which people probably that know me are going to watch this and hear that are going to be a bit like he's lying. But no, it did frighten me a bit because I was only 7. But then I soon got fed up of playing games in the house and wanted to get back in the go-kart. So, and then we stepped it up a little bit. We went to Honda Cadets at the age of 8. Commonly driving around Bayford Meadows and Buttmore Park and things like that. Very good OG places for me. Learned everything there, first few races. And I think I got my first win at Lyd in Honda Cadets when I was 9, and then we stepped it up to Super 1, which was the British Championship at the time when I was 10. We were successful with that in Honda Cadets. Finished second to Tictum in Comas. Bit of a story behind that one, but we won't go into that. And then did a bit in junior karting, like KF3 and things like that, a little bit abroad, but that was when, the finances were very key to being successful, which is unfortunately the way it's going at the moment.
So what kept you going through all those years?
I think it was always a family thing. My mum, up until my first year in F4, only ever missed one race in 10 years. My sisters always come along because we always had an American motorhome. So we'd all hop in and drive to the circuits together as a family. And I think had it have not been like that, and then you had the ups and downs of a race weekend, and you didn't have family to bounce back on and know you got someone to talk to. Very similar to how it was in the States for me. If it wasn't going too well, and I didn't have family there with me, so I was living with the team. Lovely people. I still talk to them now, still get on with them. But when you're having a bad weekend and you want to blame the team, but you can't because you're living with them. It was a little bit like that. So, just it being a family thing got you through all the tough times, and then it made it a little bit harder when it got to the financial side of things.
So even those early years, did you find that financial side of motorsport harder than the actual driving itself?
I'd say there's a lot more commitment to the driving, and actually, I don't know, it's a hard one because if you come from family that can afford to take you all the way to the top, then you don't have to work on the finances. You have to work on just the motorsport. I say just the motorsport like it's easy, but it is a hard one. They're both obviously very hard. Once I'm sort of behind the wheel of a race car, I find I don't even worry about anything like that. I'm there doing what I need to do, and my main focus is qualifying and races. But the financial side of things is always hard. You always want to try and leave that to someone else. But gate crashing. So you always want to leave the finances out of, a driver's perspective. You want it to be someone else's job that they have to put up with, which will end up being the hardest bit for them, but that leaves you to be able to focus on what you need to do.
So even in those early years in go-karts, how did you and your family manage those? Because even in go-karts, it's still quite a big cost.
I mean, go-kart budgets nowadays are similar to F4 in Europe, so there's people spending 250,000 euros to drive go-karts around in circles. And obviously, I come from a motorsport family. My dad did. I say my granddad did. He tried. He wasn't, brilliant, but he was a lot more engineer-minded, my granddad, so I can't take that away from him. He used to set the go-kart up with Dad, gave race teams I was with in the early years that weren't too brilliant. Advice with what to do with a car, because obviously early stages of your career, you're building a platform and a name for yourself, so no one really knows who you are, what you've done. And when the most shocking thing is when you go to a car paddock, no matter what you've done in karting, no one really cares. You get kids going into Formula 4, I've done this in European karting, I've done that, I've done this, but everyone in cars knows that in karting you can just pay the bills, write the checks, and you get the best equipment and you'll win races. But when you get to cars, it's not like that.
So as you get further up the motorsport ladder into cars, it does really start to hike up in price. How did you go about finding sponsors for the first time, like proper ones to keep you in a seat for a season?
So my F4 season with Carlin was 90% funded by sponsors. And every single sponsor I had came from someone I knew. I tried writing to people, knocking on doors, and it's the way I look at it is the way they see it, but it's not the way it is would you want to put your company on the side of a race car for blah, 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 which when you get up single-seater wise, it then gets stupid. You need sponsors of over 100,000 individually. Sometimes you might need a big one of, like say 500,000, and is that really worth a sticker on the car? That's what they come at you back with. Why would I pay that to put my sticker on a race car? Obviously there is a lot more to it, attendance at race weekends, TV time and audience and things like that, which they don't really take into account. They only see it as that, which is very frustrating when you spend 40 minutes talking to someone trying to sell, yourself and get them to assist you in following your dream, and then they say, well, is that really worth putting a sticker on a race car? And you're like, wow, you could have stopped me while I was talking and then it would have made it a lot easier. But I think it's always going to be a problem. You get your Hamiltons who, were picked up very young. It doesn't really happen now, to be honest. It's all about money now. If anyone down the road or anyone in England had the money and thought, you know what, I want to go racing, they could just go to a race team, they tell them the price and they pay it, and then that's it, they're a racing driver. It's as simple as that. But when, say you've grafted for since you were 5 years old, driving a car around the fields, to then have that stop purely down to money, no matter how good you was or how good you are, isn't a great feeling.
So do you have any advice for me, even though my things are a lot smaller on a much smaller scale, do you have any advice for me to sort of go to anyone for sponsorship?
I'd probably focus on motoring companies, and given social media following and what you've got on the YouTube side of things, that is really what you can sell to sponsors, is your audience, your exposure, your screen time, your clicks and things like that is really what they want to see, especially with how the modern day's going. It's all social media orientated. YouTube's massive now. So I'd abuse that as much as you can. That is your golden ticket to getting sponsors, and I think that's all they look at. If you think of it, you're a company that a kid wants you to sponsor. The kid with 100 followers is good. The kid with 10,000 followers is not as good. He's a bit average. Better for your brand and your brand awareness and marketing, you're going to go for the kid with more following. So basically, you could get more sponsorship than me. So I think for your situation, I'd probably just use that as much as you can. Approaching companies with the audience that you have is going to be a massive benefit.
So, say when you're going for the championship in F4 or the Ginetta Juniors, were you still thinking about the financial side? Like, should I go for this move or?
The years before that, yes. My first year in Ginetta Juniors, I had no sponsors. It was with a lovely group of people, but a very average team. We still won races, had good results. We all worked together to achieve that, and it worked really well. And then from that year, Pertec, who has sponsored the Jordan family for many, many years, were looking for a young driver. And that came around from Mike Jordan, so Andrew Jordan's dad, who used to be a teammate with my dad. Just approached my dad, as simple as that. Didn't look at anyone else, I don't think, because obviously we was doing quite well. We had a good, proven track record, and he knew my dad. That was it. The second you have someone who knows it's like life. It's all about who you know, not what you know, and that is exactly how I got my sponsors, all from who I knew. Maybe a little bit of what I knew, that might have helped, but it was all about who we knew.
So in 2019, I think it touched on what you said earlier. Do you think it's still possible for a driver with a lot of talent but no backing to go somewhere in motorsport?
So I've just come back from 2 days testing, and one of the truckies said, I feel your pain, and you're a prime example of someone who was very talented, but I won't say what he said, but has been shafted by having no money. And I think it's only getting worse. Don't get me wrong, there's kids out there who are really, really good with the financial backing as well. So it's a given, that's the golden ticket. They're going to get there because they're good enough and they've got the money. But there's been drivers from all over the years that have always been good and never made it. Danny Watts, for example, in Formula Renault he was the man to beat. He gave Hamilton a run for his money. He's one of the few to beat Hamilton at that time, and purely down to finances couldn't make it to the top. And I think people say it wasn't like it back in the day, blah, 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 but even Senna, for example, had Brazilian bank money. So I think it's always the thing with racing, and it's very hard to get this across to fans and people outside of it, is why are you not being paid to race? Well, so we use Carlin, for example. They have 80 plus employees from here to the States. So you can only imagine the outgoings of wages and team hotels, transport for the team, and engine leases, brakes, tyres, fuel, all of it adds up. And if you just average it out, imagine trying to feed a team of 30 people for 4 days over a race weekend, put them in hotels, transport, the lot. It all adds up, and I think that's where a lot of the budgets come into play, is trying to explain that to people away from racing is very hard. Oh, you do racing, you're a professional driver, what's your wage? My wage? I have to pay to do it. What do you mean you have to pay? That's their common response. And then you spend half an hour trying to get it across to them. They say, well, you can't be that good then because you have to pay. And you're like, it's not how it works. It doesn't matter how good you are. It's all about being able to pay the bills. And then it's very worth it. Say, like, when you get to the top, the wage you'll be on is dreamy. But if you can find someone to believe in you that enough, you have no hiccups along the way, and you can get someone to give you the money to make it to the top, it's the best investment they'll ever make, because they're bound to make their money back and triple. But unfortunately, that's not how it works.
So going on to you, what are your aims for the future now? Are you going to go still the single-seater route, or do you want to focus on GTs?
I think we'll focus on the GT programme. The Lamborghini stuff that we've got this year is going to be really good. Really looking forward to that. Not many get to say they drive a Lamborghini. So really looking forward to that. So obviously we've got some Asian F3 outings this year as well. We're going to be looking forward to that as well. But unfortunately, they clash with the Lambo program. So Lambo was first dibs. I was with them first. So I'll probably miss out the Asian F3 weekends. Asia's very good. It's all motoring comes from Asia, made in China, Japan, places like this. So it's going to be a great year to build a platform for myself. And in the GT program over there, you can very easy to make a living and have a paid drive. So I'm really looking forward to that. Both drives this year, highly sponsored. So it just shows how different it is over there compared to England.
So last one, what's your ultimate dream still?
It will always be to be a name in an F1 paddock, be in an F1 paddock. The thing with racing is I'm 20. Doesn't sound old, or it does when you say you're halfway to 40, which I've been told the last few days. You get people. So Damon Hill, for example, he was only got into Formula One when he was in his 30s. It was the people like Verstappen getting there when he was 17 that makes it feel like, oh, it's too late. But it's not. Brendan Hartley got there quite late. You only need a few good years to get in with someone who knows someone to get you there. Simple as that. And if I can build a platform for myself in Asia, make some good relationships with sponsors and things like that, then you do the Super Formula stuff in Asia and you get a name in that, you're successful in that, then you can, make the transition to, say, a year in F2 with the sponsors from Asia. And then you may have a very slim chance to get into Formula One. But I think it's the second you come out of Europe and have a change of program and change of career, so from single-seaters to GTs, it's very hard to go back, and people often think, well, you've left single-seaters, are you still going to be good enough? So me doing GTs and single-seaters at the same time should be good, and should be hopefully keep some faith in, for me, knocking on some F1 doors. Do you remember me? I'm back.
Awesome, that was it. Good luck in 2019, and good luck to wherever you end up.
Andrew, I'll be at Brands giving you a watch.